And we're back. Awesome, Mayo here. And this is the third and final part. Holy moly, we made it all the way through. This is part 3 of getting started in real estate with zero down, building your empire, the 10 to 30 grand a month, the myth around motivated sellers, some of the questions that I get on how to build your company, the focus on transactions, and 30 ways to buy real estate zero down. A lot of these things, almost all of them actually apply to companies as well. So this is part 3. Hopefully you've gone through the first 2 parts. If you haven't, I recommend you go through them first. Everything will make more sense. And you'll start to see this isn't about having a solution and then going and finding the problem. This is about having the solution for any problem that you come across. That's how you build a company, an empire. An empire. Okay, let's get going. We left off on number 18. So here's number 19, placing a second mortgage. You carry a second. This might be the most underutilized tool in the entire arsenal. Ask yourself, why would you ever want to own a piece of real estate? There are good reasons, but for most people, all those reasons come back to a way to make money that you can still do if you put a second on a property. If you become a lender, a lien holder, meaning that you somehow give money or you allow your money to be delayed, to be paid to you over time, you finance it and you use the house as collateral. You're not an owner, but a lender. Remember, ownership is nothing, control is everything. You still have control as a lender, and you can still make just as much money up front, just as much money over time, and just as much money later on. Remember, those are the 3 areas of making money? You can make money just as much on each one by being a lender and not an owner. So on a subject to deal, for example, you can accomplish almost all of the same benefits without taking the deed. So instead of actually getting the deed, you can just put a second mortgage on the property and you can still make money. You can make money down, you can make money with payments over time, and you can still have that loan that needs to be paid off, so you can still make money on the back end as well. You don't have ownership though, but honestly, you should think about why you would ever want ownership. Yes, you can get the tax benefits, but you also get tax benefits as a lender too. Also, compared to subject to, your future involvement is a welcome benefit instead of an implied requirement, like it would be with the subject to. Because instead of a seller calling you about problems that may come up with the payments, it's you that's calling the seller about problems with the payments, or the buyer. So if there's a problem, they don't call you asking where the money is. You can call them and ask them where the money is. And then if you agree, you can come back in and help them find another tenant or help them sell the house again, or if you choose to, help them again. And it's seen as just that, you helping them. It's not something you're doing because you're required to do it. And if you do choose to go back in and help them, you get to get paid all over again. But the main difference is the built-in positioning. You're not on the hook. And there's a lot more reasons to use a second mortgage, which brings us to number 20, using a real estate agent's commission. Remember that one of the biggest secrets to making money is to understand that you don't want the money. You want the transactions. Very few people in general will ever understand this, but when it comes to real estate agents, very, very few of them will ever understand this or even want to. So you want to make sure if you do educate people that you're educating the people that want to get educated. And in those cases, you may want to help them see the light a little. Here's an example. Let's say that you're going to get 80% financed on a house and it's a $100,000 house. That leaves the 80% that's getting financed, so that leaves 20% that you need. So let's say the real estate agent commission is 7%. And on top of that, the average house will sell from anywhere between 96 to 97% of the asking price. So if we take that 3 to 4% plus the agent's 7%, that's about 10% off. Now that leaves us with another 10%. To get that 10%, you have a few options. First, it can be seller financed. Maybe 10% is easier than 20%. Or you can have a buyer or investor already lined up that brings in the down payment, so you can sell it before. So you can sell it first, just like we've talked about in the first 2 parts. Or you can go out and get private money for that 10%. Or you can just adjust the price and take over the payments if it's a term sale. There's a lot of ways to structure this. The point is that instead of fighting with agents, you can work with them and make a lot more happen. Now take a second and look at this from the agent's point of view. So many sellers don't think they can afford to sell their house through a realtor. So by creating this, by financing their commission, by doing this essentially zero down for the seller, this is a great way to open a door and allow agents to list new houses and get new business that they otherwise would not have had. And on top of that, the agents can start selling their own listings faster, so they can get more listings and sell more of their current listings. So the money that comes from their current listings that they're selling faster, most of that money would not have been made without them doing this. But even if that money would have come in anyway, you're helping that money come in faster. And not just faster, but it can be a lot more. Here's an example. The agent can charge, let's say, 20 to 25% for financing their commission, and then add 20 to 25% in interest payments, because it's basically like credit card borrowing. High interest, short-term deals. So if they did nothing else but just started doing this, they could increase their current business from these transactions by, let's say, 50%. So if they were making $100,000 in a year, that'd be 150 grand a year. If they were making 200 grand a year, they could make 300 grand a year. And for the most part, the payments are honored because it's such a small amount compared to the loan. So buyers and investors will usually honor those payments. And you definitely will if they're doing it with you. So keep that in mind. That's a pretty cool tool for their current business. Also, on top of this, in part 1, I mentioned Wendy. This is what she did with her real estate agents. She showed them how this works and how they can make a lot more money, and how sellers could sell their house with an agent zero down. And she worked with a handful of agents, and she was able to triple their companies overnight because suddenly they had all these extra listings coming in because now they could tell sellers you could, sell your house zero down. And just from doing that I said I would mention how she made that extra $4,700 a week, over $4,500 a week. This was how it was from increasing the business that her real estate agents were doing, and then she was getting a share of that. This is a real powerful tool. Let's keep going. 21, selling a second mortgage. So let's consider the same second mortgage that we talked about, but now we're going to say that you wanted to, for whatever reason, that you want to create a payday on that same deal, another payday. So you can turn around and sell that second mortgage for a discount. And anytime you trade cash over time or cash in the future for cash right now, you're going to get less than the full amount. So you want to know that going into it. But this is a huge market, and if you want to liquidate fast, you have this option. So this is another way to get into deals and not only zero down, but to actually make money on top of the money that you already made. This is another little siphon point. And it also works well with number 23, loan modifications. Okay, so this is a pretty important deal. If you're starting out, I do not suggest that you help people get out of foreclosure or deal with late payments by loaning them money or catching them up on their payments. That's almost never a good idea, but especially if the people are going to stay, if the owner is going to stay in the property. And this is how so many investors get in trouble, because what happens, think about it this way. If you have to explain to a judge or a jury why you thought that when a homeowner was having a hard time making one mortgage payment, you thought it would be a good idea for them to have two payments. If you have to just imagine standing before a judge or a jury and explaining that, and then trying to look like the victim. The real reason that a lot of investors do that stuff, why they catch people up, is because they're hoping the seller does not make the payments so then they can take the house back or get in a good position to steal the deal. But what did we just talk about? It's very easy to create seconds on properties. You don't have to do shady stuff like that. And I can tell you about a lot of investors who had to stand in a courtroom and try to explain themselves, and they came up short. It did not turn out well for them. What that basically means is you are entering the world of predatory lending, and it's a world of legal mess. At least it is for me and you. The big banks and Wall Street guys, that's just like, for them it's like business every day. For me and you, we'll get the book thrown at us. And we should. You shouldn't be going and taking advantage of people like this, especially when there's not a real way, obvious way that they're going to be able to make that extra payment. So if you're starting out, do not catch payments up. Instead, if you have a homeowner who wants your help and they want to stay in the house, one way that you can do this is talk to the bank with them, not for them, with them. And I go over lots of ways to talk to the bank elsewhere, so you can go through our other stuff for that. But if and when you come to an arrangement with the bank, which is not hard to do, and it looks like the owner can stay in the house, that's something you can and should make money with. But you don't want to go raping them. Instead, you can get paid a consulting fee, a counseling settlement, a rearrangement invoice, a dry refinance. There's different terms for it. Whatever you want to call it, there's different terms for it. And you can finance it by putting a second mortgage on the home. And now you can get payments, or maybe no payments, or maybe sporadic payments, like maybe not every month. Maybe they pay you off later, or maybe they pay you every few months, or maybe they just handle it whenever they get their finances back in the next year. Or you can just do it as standard. Maybe they just pay you up front, or maybe they refinance the house, or maybe they do pay you every month. However you want to structure it's okay, but make sure it's in their best interest. And that's if they do want to stay in the house. If they don't want to stay in the house, then you can do the same thing, the same loan modification, and then add a subject to or something to buy the property, or you can just sell it outright and get the down payment and then put another mortgage on there for the monthly payments or the equity that's coming to you from the sale. While we're talking about this, by the way, number 24 is short sales. So this is where a bank is going to get less than the loan, less than what the owner owes to the bank. So the bank, let's say they owe $100,000. The bank is going to take an amount less than that. This is a little bit better than having a foreclosure on your credit, but not a whole lot better. A deed in lieu of foreclosure is basically when a seller gives the deed back and they don't make the bank jump through a bunch of hoops. Given how much trouble you save the bank when you do that, you don't get that. You would think that it'd be exponentially better than foreclosure, but it's not. This is still pretty bad to have on someone's credit. And your seller or someone you're working with needs to understand that this is better than foreclosure, but not much. And it can, I guess, sometimes it can make a bigger difference depending on the situation and how well they explain it. Either way, this shouldn't be something that ever happens to you. It's something to keep in mind for your sellers. Okay, so the bank is going to take an amount that is less than owed. So you have a few ways to do these deals. You can use some of your money sources to buy the house and then rent or sell it out or whatever you want. Or you can sell it immediately and then do an immediate close or day fund to close, or help an investor day fund the two-part close like we talked about earlier. You can also move that deal to an investor beforehand. And I'm saying beforehand because if a bank tries to get tough guy with you, or if you just want to play nice, you can follow a rule that they might throw out, which is that they do not want the seller or anybody else to profit immediately from the sale. Or maybe they don't want you to assign the deal to another investor. Or maybe they're trying to add a whole bunch of contingencies and conditions and a whole bunch of fine print. A lot of times with the deals that we do and the deals that our students do, people always ask them, how did you know about this deal beforehand, before anybody else. So here's a big secret. This is pretty cool. And it carries over from our last method of using a second mortgage. This is another great reason that using mortgages is such a great idea. If you call a bank or if you're trying to negotiate, one of the first things they want to know is who you are. And if you're the homeowner, that's one thing. If you're an investor, that's something else, and usually their tone changes real quick. The tone and conduct of the bank is going to be set in a way, very often at least, where you're going to be fighting tooth and nail over every little penny, and there's a great way to avoid this. In the last example we talked about, if a seller was having trouble, you could help them out by putting a second mortgage on the property. Well, let's say that despite everything that you did, the house is still going into foreclosure. Now at this time, you can step in and start talking to the bank, but not as a greedy investor, but as a concerned lender. You get it? So usually they have a loss mitigator that's handling these deals. So guess who can handle your dealings? Your loss mitigator. You see where we're going with this? Now that loss mitigator may be you, although it shouldn't be, and I do not recommend getting involved in these situations too much, unless you really want to, in which case you want to be artistic with it. But if you're just trying to build your company and get things moving, it's not you that should be dealing with this. You should have another specialized guy or gal or group that deals with the banks all the time, or you can train somebody to do it. And if you understand what I just said, just in this last paragraph, you are light years ahead of the countless investors that I've seen over the years who go out and meet with the bank's BPO agent. They try to convince them that the house is worth so little. They exaggerate market factors. They overestimate repairs, or they'll flat out lie about their involvement in the deal. And they do all this because they think that they're going to get a good deal, a good price on this house. That stuff is nuts. Don't do it. Unless you enjoy going out there and, meeting with people and talking about, loss mitigation stuff or whatever. I'm guessing that you don't love that. If you love it, great. Do it, become artistic with it. But I'm guessing that you don't. So this is why you want to partner with someone and you can work out an arrangement. If you're starting out, eventually, if you're going to do this, eventually you want to have people on your team full time that specialize in these deals. Remember, you want to focus on the regularity. These things can drag on for months and months and months. You do not want to be waiting on one of these things to close. And if one of these deals has to close in order for you to put food on the table, you're really screwing up and you are not listening to me. And one of the reasons I was bringing up the whole second mortgage thing earlier is that when it's in place, it gives you a great leverage point when you're dealing with the bank. This is one of those huge secrets that almost nobody knows, or at least nobody in the real world actually does. When you talk to the bank as a mitigator, not an investor, watch the terms that you get and the attitude and the tone. It'll be remarkably different. I've had investors who've tripled their business overnight just by making this one change, creating a mortgage and then having their mitigator deal with them. And if you're selling the note, keep this in mind. This will allow you to get a lot more money because it's a great positioning tool when dealing with the bank. And it's really easy to partner with people that want to do this. When you tell them that you have a second, you don't even need to pay them anything up front. You can take people who are currently loss mitigators and do a good job, and when they see that they're going to be in a second position, they know they're going to make a killing. They know what they're doing. They know they're making a killing. They go in, handle the entire deal, and then you get paid on the back end. And it's like shocking. I've talked about this for years, and it's like nobody does it ever. It's crazy. Okay, number 25, rehab loans. This is something like bridge loans for business, like hard money. Although in the commercial world, they're usually going to want to see your credit, income statements, transaction history, blood samples, your firstborn. You don't want to mess with that. And so many people go that route, by the way, and I'm just going to cover this briefly. One of the things you can start doing when you get private money is enter the world of business and start doing bridge loans and bridge financing for shares in the company. It's very cool, something I go way in depth on with students. But for right now, let's talk about single family residential. Hard money is short-term, high-interest money that you can use to buy and repair homes. Usually the only reason people do this is because they don't know how to get private money or they don't know how to structure these deals. Hard money costs more, and usually the people that you're going to get it from specialize in doing this kind of lending, and they do it for a living. So going by your terms instead of their terms is going to be it's going to take a little more work. The two big options you have is, number one, you can use the hard money to buy and fund your deal, or number two, you can help lend private money to other investors for their deals. When you're lending, the only difference between private money and hard money is what you charge. Number 26, wraparound financing. This is where you go and get new financing that will include the first loan and any other loans that are on that house. You can also involve seller financing with this. These are a little more complicated. I wouldn't recommend them if you're starting out. Number 27, guaranteed lease option or contract. I didn't cover this earlier when we talked about the lease options or terms deals. Usually you don't want to close on any deal until you already know what your exit is and you already have that other party in place for that exit. But another way to do deals is when you do a guaranteed contract. Basically what you're saying is that you're going to make X payments regardless of whether you sell or move the deal or not. But the secret is that you still want to have the deal moved before you ever move forward with any of these deals. By guaranteeing performance, this does help make things a priority, both for you and the seller. So if you're going to do that, normally it's best to do these deals in bulk. At least once you get good, you want to do deals in bulk. It's more helpful to everybody. But for right now, here's how this works on a single level. So this is helpful to a seller because if they're getting new financing or some kind of new loan, when they go to the bank or they get that new loan, that loan will have guidelines. And part of those guidelines will say that the payment on their new loan, on their new home loan, is not allowed to be more than a certain percentage of their monthly income. And on top of that, all the debt all together for the borrower, in this case the seller for their new loan, all their debt altogether will not be allowed to exceed a certain percentage of their income. Just about every loan works like this. Even if it's not not FHA. The numbers may be different, but people put these numbers in place for a reason. So if they have a previous loan and they're still making a monthly payment on it, the seller needs to show the bank that they're getting money to offset that. And if they show rent coming in, then they're only allowed to show about, 60, 50, 60, maybe 70, 80% of that money against their payment. But if they've sold it on a guaranteed contract or something like that, then they can show 100% of the payment being made, and they can basically add that income, or at least negate the effect of the previous mortgage and the effect that it's having on their income, so they can get a better loan or a bigger loan. A bigger loan isn't always a better loan, but most people think it is. So this is how it's helpful to them. Does that make sense? Okay, number 28, 100% owner finance. I'm surprised we didn't talk about this earlier, but about 1 to 3 to 1 out of 5 homes in America are totally paid off. They're owned free and clear with no loans or mortgage on them. And there's some simple ways to get in touch with these people by using sale dates, tax records. Even if you just go to the recorder's office and look for the deeds, you're looking for the reconveyance release, the mortgage release, all the information's right on there. How much, the time frame, etc. The assessor's office can be really helpful. And I'll talk about this for a second because you can have somebody on your team, like a title company, they can go out and do this, and they can do it for free because the business that you get from this, you're going to send through them. And when I talk about the importance of understanding how to build your business and keeping your 10 to 30 income in mind, this is the stuff I'm talking about. When I was talking about Alex in part 1, he was working with Zach on this. And here's how he set this up. He was doing this, and he had his title company calling him and asking him if they could do more of this for him because they wanted the business. And so that's how he did it. They worked very part-time. They would use the criteria that he gave them, and they put together the mailing list based on that criteria, what we just talked about, and then they sent the mailing pieces that he provided. And these are easy to get if you understand how an MFM works. And then they continued to mail with the sequence and the timeline that he taught them. Remember, any title company can get this information. Those things that we're talking about, the tax records, the sale dates, the reconveyance notices, all that stuff is really accessible. So his title company was doing all of this for him. There was one gal at the title company that used to handle all the calls that came in, and then she would send the screened deals to his agent, who was trained on how to find the buyers and close the deals, which is really simple because all he's doing is taking the paperwork over and then using the signs and ads to get buyers. And then Alex went to his buyer list to move these deals. And then at first Alex used to go to his list, but then the agent started going to Alex's list of all his buyers. So this was totally hands off for Alex. And eventually this side business was running without any involvement of his, except for, as you know, a conference call. He had a single conference call with his team, and he did one every other month. One conference call every other month to keep this going. And I usually don't recommend that. I usually recommend trying to double or triple hectuple it, but he was doing a little experiment. One phone call, one conference call every other month. And when I talked to him for the last 2 years, he's made on average over $12,000 a month. But the secret wasn't buying free and clear, right? That wasn't the secret. Although that's what an amateur would say, that wasn't the secret. It was the way he was doing it, the way that he built his business. He got trained to build a company instead of just a job, right? That's what he told me. I wanted to get trained to build a company, not to get a job. 12 grand a month from a side business that takes less than an hour a month. It's not bad. Okay, number 29, state incentivized deals. This is especially powerful when you start doing deals internationally, because a lot of places like Dubai and South Africa where Millie's doing this, those governments are going out of their way to make it worthwhile for investors to come in. This is also in America with projects like Go Zone, which was some short for something, it's like the Gulf Opportunity Zone Act, I think. This was after Hurricane Katrina. The government had a 50% bonus depreciation, which meant that you could buy a property and then write off 50% of that cost. And it's amazing because you can do those deals in bulk, and an investor can basically save or make enough money in taxes that they can go buy more deals or buy a new house. It's really powerful. So you can do these deals zeroed on yourself using any one of the things we've been talking about. That's one way. Or you can work with other investors. And if you're doing a standard assignment like we've talked about earlier, you can make 2 to 3 times as much money, because think about what the investor's getting. Let's say they're paying just 5 to 10% down. They can make 5 to 10 times that back immediately just in taxes, or at least the gross. Of course, we adjust that for their tax bracket, but you get the idea. Now, these may not be assignments. They don't have to be assignments. You can do a consulting agreement, although I prefer an invoice or a settlement partnership agreement or a balance that's being settled. But the bottom line is that you are connecting investors with these deals. And although they're not always happening in America like that, they're happening somewhere like that all the time. Now, here's an even better and totally badass way to do it. Number 30, incentivized deals through a company. Okay, so this is really cool. Millie and Sonny invented a whole model around this. Let's say we use the same deal in the same example we just talked about. You connect an investor with the deal, you make some money, and they get a huge write-off. One way to structure those deals is that they do a package of them, and then all the benefits, just like the rent or the proceeds from the sale, go to a company that you own shares in. So all the money is going to go to a company that you own shares or a percentage of. And that company, maybe it's just an interest that you have, but there's some arrangement where you don't own the properties, but you're getting the dividends on the performance. This is a great way to continue working with your investors and to help them keep the deals managed and running. Now, I got to tell you, this is a killer strategy. You can do this even if you're just starting out. You just have to get serious and get trained, of course. But where can I get trained to be a badass like this, Azam? I know the options are limited, but you want to make it happen. You want to make it a priority. A while ago, something leaked out on the the internet about how some of my students were making sick money with this model, like 200 to 300 grand a week in their first month, and that was the low end. There were even crazier numbers that were being reported. Now I want to say I'm not confirming anything, and I don't talk about stuff like that publicly, because I get it. It's just crazy. It's too crazy. I get that. I understand that. But I want to say that the numbers those people were talking about, which I'm not confirming or denying, right? I'm just saying the numbers those people were talking about, although this was the model that was being used, or may have not been used, I guess I should say, although this was the model, they were doing deals in Dubai, but the guys, the people that were talking about, those students, those people, those clients, they were already rich. They were really rich, filthy rich before they ever met me. And when I say rich, I'm talking like $2 million cars and $15 million summer homes rich. And even though they gave me some great testimonials and they gave us all credit for it, I've never used those success stories publicly. I only used it with our circle of friends and students. It's not that I don't like to brag about students. You know that I love doing that. But I know how crazy it sounds, and it really is kind of misleading because those guys were insanely rich to begin with. So I prefer to use examples of students who were not born with, $100 million. I'm only bringing it up now because it was already out there. So although the main goal was to set the record straight, this does show you how profitable this method alone can be. Okay, moving on. Speaking of overseas deals, number 31, trial options, exploratory options, feasibility requests. This is another one that Max invented, and since then, a few students have done some pretty cool things with it, but not many. I'll be honest, not many. But Max loves it, so I'll mention it here. It basically works like this. Let's say there's a property that you think may or may not be attractive to some larger companies or a big government agency. Maybe there are new developments or possible minerals on the land or some strategic advantage for one company to maybe own or lease a property. For example, in developing areas like Dubai, sometimes zoning issues change and a tech company wants to get the drop on their competitors. So even though they might build or get only one place, they want to lease or try to tie up as many other potential locations as possible so they can keep their competitor from it. So you can get a trial option, which is usually a short-term option for the purpose of studying the viability of a property, but it gives the holder the first right to refusal. And then if you talk to a couple big companies and you tell them that you're contacting each of them to see who wants to be first, you can kind of play them against each other. Sometimes they'll send an agent out and buy the option from you, even if they don't do anything with it, just because they don't want anyone else to get it. So we have some funny stories around that. Okay, we got to keep moving. Number 32. I know I said we'd only go over 30, but we're going over more than 30. Number 32. Partner with the seller. This is something that people don't do enough of, and it helps you align interests with the seller really fast, so both of you get on the same team. There's different ways to set this up. Basically, you can help them get the money or the credit or the marketing skill that they need to get the house in better condition, or sell it as is, and then you're going to work out a split with them. The cool thing is that you don't actually have to sell the house for cash. You can find a terms buyer like a lease option tenant, and you can still get paid up front and use a mortgage or a note to get those payments and or the back end money. If this is done correctly, you don't miss out on anything, and neither does the seller. So you can help the seller get the money, get the work done, or find the buyer that they need to make the sale and to get what they want. You can help make that happen. Then you can work out an arrangement to have some sort of split with the profits. Another way of doing these deals, and the reason that you want to build a relationship with the seller and agents and everyone involved, is that you can have the seller make you special offers that are only for an immediate sale. The more condensed the timeline is, the better the offer that they make. So they can make you an offer with a 72-hour price, meaning that if there's a valid offer in the next 72 hours, this is the special price that'll work for them. And that's what I recommend you start at. Whenever you go through this special price, and you want to tell them that this is a 72-hour price, and then you want to come back with a 24-hour price, and then lastly, a 1-hour price. So sellers make you 72-hour offers, 24-hour offers, and 1-hour offers. This is how you get people eating out of the palm of your hand. If they're making you offers and you can turn around and immediately let a group of investors know and then watch the bids come in, this is how you move properties in less than an hour. And remember, you don't have to partner with the seller to do this, but the positioning that comes with it when you do, it's like you want to be working with the seller, not against them. You want to be working with them. It's almost like you're working with them against the investors. It's really a powerful positioning tool. And you don't beat them up on price or negotiate. They come up with the offer. And this works really well with something I'll tell you in a second. So like I said, you don't have to partner with the seller to do the 72, 24, 1-hour pricing. No matter how you structure these deals, you'll always have money coming to you, not just up front from an assignment, but you can also keep getting paid over time and on the back end. Number 33, sweat equity. This can be where work or sweat is traded for a down payment and or other payments. You can help fix up a property, for example, and that can be your funds or an investment. You can also help arrange this for others where they trade their work for favorable financing. One way to get this done without doing the work is to get a team of handymen to finance their work. They'll make a lot more money doing this, but it'll be over time or after the property sells. If there's problems or they flake out, you still get whatever work they did. Number 34, partner with the investor or the buyer. This is a powerful method. Let's say an investor needs money to rehab and you can help get them the money, or you can get them the work done, or you can provide money for them to purchase, or any variation of those three. You not only make money up front for helping them connect with the money and the deal, but you can also arrange to get paid based on how they sell the property or how they liquidate the property, a limited partnership on the profits. So think of it this way. Here's the secret when it comes to doing this. A lot of people try and figure out how they can buy deals zero down. But instead of doing that, think about how you can make it zero down for other people. Because when you make it easier for them to buy, it's also easier for you. And just because it's zero down for them, that doesn't doesn't mean that you're not going to get paid up front or that you have to wait or finance your profit. You can do this with standard buyers too. By helping buyers, investors, and other people buy deals, by helping other parties do this, you're helping yourself as well. It's what's in everyone's best interest. For example, number 35, 100% traditional buyer financing. VA, FHA, you can look at, there's a lot of different 100% traditional buyer financing for standard buyers. Maybe a seller needs to pay the 3.5% closing costs, or a seller takes a second for repairs or an allowance for rehab. There's a whole lot of ways to buy a house zero down, a lot of well-known ways if you're going to live in the house. So getting your buyers favorable financing not only means they can buy the house easier, but it can make you a lot more money and a lot faster. And you can use other money sources with investors. For example, number 36, credit cards, temporary loans, lines of credit. This is a great potential source of cash that can allow an investor or even a home buyer, just a regular home buyer, to get money. And although it's not usually ideal because it's so expensive, when you start adding things like delayed payments, balance transfers, zero interest, and other incentives, this is actually much more attractive than it might seem at first. This is also a great way where you can make a deal zero down for an investor, but you still get paid and make $5, $10, $15, $20,000 up front. You're helping them get a credit card or a temporary loan or a line of credit, and they're using that to get into the deal, and it's not costing them money out of pocket. You're helping them borrow money. Remember, you're helping other people do zero down deals. It amazes me how many investors don't focus on this. They deprioritize it. Make it a priority. Whatever you want to do, other people want to do too. Help them get there, and you can make a lot more money. This is how you take maybe a $5,000 or $10,000 assignment and you turn it into a $15,000 or $20,000 assignment. Also, we have number 37, financing your 401k or retirement plans. There's several other retirement plans and insurance policies and other instruments that can be used as leverage to come up with funds and make a deal zero down for an investor or buyer, but that do not require you to wait on getting paid. And I want to stop for a second and point out that if you buy a deal zero down and you move it zero down, you can not only walk away with cash, but remember, there's a lot of ways that you can still retain some or all the benefits or all the financial dividends of owning the property. Let's say you partnered with an investor, for example, so it would be zero down for them and you're still getting paid on the back end and you got paid on the front end. Remember, owning the real estate is different than controlling the real estate. It's all about the transaction control. I told you earlier that we'd come back and talk about Kendra. That's what she does. This is what she does. She partners with sellers like we just talked about. So they come to her and they make her those 72-hour and 24-hour and 1-hour offers. She takes those offers and she sends out a notice to her people. Now, many of those people are investors, and she used to make maybe sometimes $5 to $10 grand a month. But then she made a few tiny changes that we're talking about right now. She helped her investors and her buyers get funds, like through the 401k, through lines of credit, through credit cards. Not only was she able to make a lot more up front, but she opened the door to allow many more people to do deals, and they could do more of them. This is how she started making 25 to 30 grand a month. She went from making 5 to 10 grand a month to making over 25 to 30 grand a month with almost the exact same volume. And once you start building your team, you can do this in a matter of hours. This side business of hers was doing over 25 to 30 grand, and she was spending less than an hour a week to keep it going. Sellers came to her once a week with their 24-hour and their 1-hour offers, and she would just take them and send them out. And then another way that she doubled it after that, you know what, I keep getting way off track. I gotta stop. We gotta, what are we at, 37 hours? We gotta stop. Okay, one more and then we gotta stop. You guys are pushing me. Give you an inch and you take a mile. Okay, number 38. Oh, how can we forget this? Trade. This is one of my all-time favorites. This might be my favorite way. I don't know why we waited till 38 to say it. I said we'd only go over 30. We went well past that. 38, trade. This is one of my all-time favorite ways. I'll tell you, if you want to see how many opportunities that you're missing, if you want to see the hidden world of brilliance that is invisible to almost everybody else, if you really want to make things happen and grow your business and enter other businesses and experience radial growth that's geometric and uncontrollable, where you start going in all sorts of different directions, then start trading. Sometimes people ask me what they should trade for. That's not the question. The question isn't what should I trade, it's what do people want to trade. I honestly don't have the time to go over even 1/100th of the examples I have from students, but let me tell you this, no matter what business you're in, or even if you're not in business, you should start trading, even if you don't have anything to trade, even if you don't even have a job, even if you're just a stay-at-home parent or a stay-at-home kid. Everybody should start trading. You can do this by simply saying that you're now willing to trade. You don't even have to say what you're willing to trade for. You can trade cars for houses, houses for cars, houses for houses, mortgages for houses, houses for jets and planes for international airspace over countries. I'm not joking. It gets totally nuts. And we gotta wrap this up. We're going way past our time. Okay, here's the deal. I'll put all the real estate aside, and I'll just give you one example. And I'm just picking one at random because Millie talked to me about him today. Otherwise, there's so many other people that have done crazy awesome stuff. This is Lindsay and Brandon Reza. This is they were working with Millie on this. So she was working at a jewelry store, and she learned about this, and she talked to her boss about it. He said it would never work, so she left it alone for months. Then one day she just got sick of it. She got sick of living so far below her potential. Actually, she told me it was after her and Brandon were watching one of these classes, so she put out a sign. One of my signs, a neon yellow sign with sloppy handwriting writing on it, and the sign said, "Want fancy jewelry? No money? We're willing to trade until Friday." Now, I won't even get into the choice of words or the brilliance behind them. I won't even get into all the craziness that happened as a result. I'll just fast forward and tell you from that one sign, the domino effect that led her to working with ski resorts, lumber yards, and she even had a herd of cows at one point. Cows, what the heck? Yes, cows, for reals, I don't know. It's craziness. The bottom line is that in the next 90 days, she made over $92,000. They both worked together and did over $1,000 a day. Trading is awesome. Okay, we gotta stop. My goodness, we gotta get going. Remember, all these things are just arrows. It's all about the archer. It's never the arrow, it's always the archer. And remember, a general that relies upon weapons ensures his defeat. Work to be skilled, to be artistic, and obsess over mastering your craft. Become a badass. WeBuildEmpires.com. Okay, thank you so much. I'd love to hear how this helps you. And this was our 3-part series. This is our final part on getting started in real estate. Okay, thank you so much. We'll talk soon. Thanks. Take care. God bless.